The taste of rain in Shinano was usually sweet, carrying the scent of cedar and wet earth, but today it tasted like burnt hair and the bitter, electric tang of a dying storm. The ceramic bowl of cold rice I had been holding shattered as the first beam of orange light lanced through the village elder's roof, turning the aged wood into a fountain of white-hot splinters. I didn't reach for my straw hat. I didn't reach for my sandals. I reached for the weight at my hip, the heavy, cold iron that had spent 10 years silent in its scabbard. My name is Masato, and I have no lord to serve, no land to claim, and no honor to lose. I have only the Tsuryuken, a blade forged from a blue stone that fell from the heavens when my grandfather was a boy. They told him it was a curse from the moon god. Today I would find out if a curse could kill a star. The village of Okunotani was screaming. Not just the people but the air itself. 3 of the Cinder Knights had descended from the silver disk hovering above the valley. They were hulking 7-foot shapes of scorched metal and glowing red eyes, moving with a mechanical precision that turned the chaotic mud of our home into a sterile killing floor. They didn't use bows. They used light staves that spat bolts of concentrated heat, turning my neighbors into silhouettes of ash before they could even draw a breath. I stepped out into the main thoroughfare, my boots sinking into the muck. The lead Cinder Knight turned its 3-eyed gaze toward me. It didn't pause to challenge me. It didn't speak. It simply raised its staff and unleashed a shimmering amber-colored energy wall in front of its chassis, a barrier I had seen turn dozens of samurai arrows into harmless vapor just moments before. You think your walls protect you? I whispered, the wind whipping my tattered mino against my scarred arms. The knight fired a bolt of heat at my chest. I didn't dodge. I drew. The Tsuryuken didn't clear the scabbard with the ring of steel. It roared like a trapped hurricane. The blue meteor iron caught the gray light of the afternoon and amplified it, turning the blade into a streak of frozen cyan lightning. I swung upward, catching the orange heat bolt on the flat of the blade. The blue steel didn't melt. It drank the heat, the sword's glow intensifying until I was blinded by its brilliance. I lunged forward, closing the distance in 3 strides. The amber shield rippled as I struck it. Any other blade, even the finest Muramasa, would have shattered against that translucent wall. But the Tsuryuken was not born of this earth. The blue iron hummed a frequency that matched the shield's vibration, and with a sound like a sheet of ice being crushed, the blade passed through the amber energy as if it were nothing but mountain mist. The Cinder Knight's red eyes flickered. For a microsecond, the machine seemed to feel a digital ghost of fear. I didn't stop. The blade continued its arc, slicing through the heavy, black plating of the knight's shoulder. The metal yielded like wet clay. A pressurized spray of sapphire-colored coolant erupted from the wound, drenching my face in my straw cape. I stepped inside the knight's guard, my left hand finding the hilt for a 2-handed strike. I drove the point of the Tsuryuken into the central ocular sensor. The blue iron hissed as it pierced the alien logic core. A violent discharge of white electricity shot up my arms, burning the hair from my knuckles and throwing me backward, but the knight was finished. Its armor groaned, the amber shield dissipated into a shower of sparks, and the massive machine collapsed into the mud, its internal systems melting into a pool of glowing slag. Masato. More of them. By the granary. It was Koji, the village blacksmith's son, clutching a broken spear. He was pointing toward the village square, where 2 more knights were herding the survivors toward the giant harvester drone. The drone was a nightmare of rotating legs and sucking vacuums, stripping the very life from the patties to fuel the silver disk in the sky. Get the people to the caves, Koji. Don't look back. I turned to face the 2 remaining knights. They saw their fallen comrade and adjusted their tactics. They didn't fire. They closed in, their light staves igniting into 3-foot blades of orange plasma. They were fast, faster than any man I had ever fought. They moved in perfect synchronization, one aiming for my legs, the other for my throat. I entered the flowing water stance, the Tsuryuken held low at my side. The blue iron was vibrating now, a low-frequency growl that I could feel in my teeth. The first knight swung. I parried, the orange plasma blade sparking violently against my blue steel. The heat was immense, charring the edge of my sleeve, but the meteor iron held. I spun, using the momentum to kick the second knight's knee, the hydraulic joint buckling under the force of my iron-shod boot. As the second knight stumbled, I pivoted and brought the Tsuryuken down in a vertical cleave. It sliced through the orange plasma blade, severing the staff in 2, and continued down through the knight's helmet. The blue iron split the obsidian armor as if it were a rotted log. The knight fell aside, its red eyes going dark instantly. The last Cinder Knight let out a high-pitched, mechanical shriek, a signal to the harvester drone. The ground beneath me began to shake. The drone, a mass of 1,000 tons of alien steel, pivoted its central body toward me. A massive aperture opened beneath its head, and a beam of concentrated violet light began to charge. The air around me began to ionize, the smell of ozone becoming a physical weight on my lungs. "So, you want the ghost, do you?" I didn't run for cover. I ran toward the drone. Every step was a battle against the mud and the sheer pressure of the alien gravity. The Cinder Knight tried to intercept me, but I didn't even look at it. I swung the Shoryuken in a wide horizontal flash, the blue steel decapitating the knight mid-stride as I passed. The harvester fired. The violet beam hit the ground 10 feet behind me, vaporizing the mud into a wall of boiling steam. The shockwave threw me through the air. I hit the side of a burning hut, the dry thatch scratching at my face before I tumbled back into the muck. My vision was swimming in red and blue. My ribs felt like they had been crushed by an ox. But I was still holding the sword. I looked up. The drone was recalibrating, the violet light gathering for a second strike that would erase Okunotani from the map. I gripped the hilt of the Shoryuken with both hands. I didn't have the strength for another charge. I closed my eyes and whispered to the blue stone inside the hilt. I didn't pray to the gods of Japan, I talked to the star that died to make this blade. I felt the iron respond. It wasn't cold anymore. It was burning with a frigid, ancient fire. I stood up, my silhouette framed by the burning village. I raised the sword above my head, the point aiming at the glowing violet aperture of the drone. The drone fired. At the same moment, I threw the Shoryuken. I didn't throw it like a knife, I threw it like a bolt of lightning. The sword spun through the air, a wheel of cyan light that cut through the violet beam itself. The alien energy tried to deflect the blade, but the meteor iron sliced the light apart, the blue steel feeding on the power of the attack. The Shoryuken buried itself deep into the harvester's central eye. For a heartbeat there was silence. Then the blue iron did what it was meant to do. It released all the energy it had drunk from the knights and the beams. A massive explosion of cyan frost and white electricity erupted from the center of the drone. The giant machine shrieked, its 1,000 legs locking up before it collapsed in a heap of twisted, freezing metal. The harvester didn't burn. It was shattered into 1,000,000 shards of blue glass. The silver disk in the sky let out a low, mournful hum and began to ascend, retreating from the valley as the connection to its harvester was severed. I collapsed into the mud, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The rain continued to fall, washing the blue alien oil from my skin. A moment later, I heard the squelch of boots in the muck. It was Koji. He reached down into the shattered remains of the drone and pulled the Shoryuken from the wreckage. The blade was dark again. Cold. Silent. He brought it to me, his hands shaking. You killed it, Misato-sama?" he whispered. I took the sword back, sliding it into its scabbard with a final, definitive clack. I didn't look at the survivors emerging from the caves. I didn't look at the ruins of the village. I looked at the gray mountains of Shinano hidden behind the veil of the falling rain. "The star is gone, Koji," I said, standing up with a groan. "Go home. Rebuild." I turned away from the smoke and the gratitude. I didn't want a seat at their table or a name in their songs. I walked back toward the reeds, my tattered cape fluttering in the cold wind, a ghost returning to the shadows of a world that was no longer quite so dark. The rain washes the sapphire blood into the earth, and the patties begin to settle. The steel is sheathed, the storm is over, and the mud of Shinano holds its peace. The Ronin vanishes into the mist, and the blue dragon sleeps once more.